Welcome to D&D Builds, where we have an outlet to make all sorts of ridiculous Dungeons & Dragons characters and stop driving the people in our lives insane with them. Today we're gonna master the heart of the cards.
It's time to duel!
Because we're creating Yugi from Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh's original creator, Kazuki Takahashi, recently passed away, so I wanted to do this as an homage to him. If you want the character sheets to any of my builds, access to the Discord, or plenty of other benefits, feel free to check out my Patreon like these incredible badasses here. They're my patrons and they help me do this stuff. Now let's jump into creating a full-blown master of the cards. Let me know what your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card is down in the comments, and I'll share mine at the end of this video. First things first, we gotta pick a race for Yugi, and that's pretty straightforward. We're gonna pick a human, and we're gonna go human variant so that way we can get a feat. But I'm going to save what that feat is until we dive a little deeper into this build. This gives you proficiency in one skill, an extra language so that way you can dub Yu-Gi-Oh in a different language, and a bonus to some ability scores. The skill we're going to take is Persuasion, that we can help encourage your allies. The background we're going to choose here is Faceless. Faceless are known to have dual personalities, and that fits perfectly for Yugi. This also gives you skill proficiencies in Deception and Intimidation, which is great for maintaining a solid poker face while you're looking through your cards. Now let's jump into some stats. Yugi is a pretty small dude, so we're going to dump strength down to 8, take dexterity, bump it up to 14 so you're a little harder to hit, take our constitution, bring it to 14, so that way you at least have a decent amount of hit points. Then take your intelligence, bump it up to 15, and then get another +1 from your human variant. It takes a lot of knowledge and thinking about your plays in order to be a good master of the cards, and I think that reflects very well in intelligence. We don't have a lot of points to go around, so we're going to dump our wisdom down to 8, and then we're going to take charisma, bring it to 12, and get another +1 from being a human variant. Yugi is a bit of a leader of his group, so most leaders need a decent amount of charisma to help them out. Now we have to pick a class, and no matter what, we have to pick a class that is focused on summoning other creatures, because that's essentially what you're doing when you're playing in a duel. While there is a very hardcore summoning class for Druid, we're not going to go that route because that's a little too nature-y, and that's not really the Yu-Gi-Oh style. There are some other spellcasting classes that focus pretty heavily on summoning, but it's hard to ignore the fact that with that pyramid thing around your neck, you're channeling the energy of another creature that you essentially made a pact with. And if you're making a pact with anybody, you're gonna be a warlock. This gives you saving throws in wisdom and charisma, access to light armor and simple weapons, although we're not gonna be using those weapons very much, and 2 skills. So we're gonna grab Arcana and Religion. Arcana is gonna be all about knowing the heart of the cards, and Religion just because you are channeling the soul of a pharaoh, and that's more leaning towards religion than anything else. Right when you become a warlock at level 1, you get to choose an otherworldly patron, and since we're relying on a pharaoh, I'm gonna go with Celestial, because pharaohs were thought to be essentially next to gods. This automatically gives you access to Cure Wounds and Guiding Bolt as spells, and Cure Wounds will be helpful so that way you can heal up the hit points of the creatures that you summon. You also get Healing Light. Healing Light gives you access to a pool of d6 dice that you can use as a bonus action to heal one creature that you can see within 60 feet of you. And you have a number of dice equal to 1 plus your Warlock level. You also get some spell casting as a Warlock, and while having a Celestial as your patron, you get access to 2 cantrips. On top of the 2 cantrips you get to learn at level 1. The cantrips you get from being a Celestial are Light and Sacred Flame, and then the cantrips we get to choose, I would go with some cantrips that are more focused on helping the things that you summon. So I would just grab True Strike, which is usually not very helpful, but if you're just trying to boost up your cards, it can help give them advantage on their next attack. Then the other spell I would grab is just Mage Hand. That way you have some sort of cool way to flip your cards, but you can also think of this as that weird thing that attaches to your arm in those dueling competitions. Then you get to pick 2 spells to learn, and I think it's time we jump into some trap cards. So we're going to grab Armor of Agathis. That way, if anybody tries to attack you directly, they activate your trap card, and they wind up taking 5 cold damage if they hit you with any melee attack. It also gives you a tiny amount of temporary hit points, which is slightly less useful because it's only about 5 points. Similarly, the other spell I would grab is Hellish Rebuke. This allows you to use a reaction to deal some fire damage to a creature that damaged you, which is just a different type of trap card because it's a whole different type of damage. Then at 2nd level, you get Eldritch Invocations, one more spell to know, and one more spell slot to use per short rest. As far as the invocations, we're going to grab Armor of Shadows, so that way it's a little harder to hit you, hopefully allowing you to stay in that duel a little longer. And then we're going to save our other invocation for next level, just like we're going to save that additional spell we want to learn. Because at 3rd level, you get your Pact Boon, you get to learn one more spell, and the spell slots available to be able to cast are upgraded to level 2. So first things first, we got to choose that Pact Boon. There's a great choice for anybody that wants to do lots of summoning, which is Pact of the Chain. This allows you to cast Find Familiar, and you can choose new forms for that familiar. And I'm going to throw a bit of a wild card out here and not take that, because you have that big chain around your neck with that big hanging pyramid thing, and that feels like a talisman. So we're going to take Pact of the Talisman, and don't worry, we will be jumping into plenty of ways to summon, but you just got to trust me for a second. Pact of the Talisman allows you to roll a d4 for any ability check and add it to the roll, and it gives us access to some additional Eldritch invocations, because we're going to throw in one more trap card with that invocation that we saved from last level. We're going to take Rebuke of the Talisman, because you don't actually have to be the one wearing the talisman if you don't want to be. You can give it to somebody else, including a creature that you summon. So since we already have some spells that are protecting you directly, the talisman can be given to a creature that you summon, and you can use this invocation called Rebuke of the Talisman to help activate a trap card for somebody attacking them. Because when the wearer of the talisman is hit by an attacker that you can see within 30 feet of you, you can use your reaction to deal psychic damage to the attacker equal to your proficiency bonus and push it 10 feet away from the talisman's wearer. This is a great way to activate a trap card if somebody's attacking one of your summoned creatures, which I know we don't have any creatures summoned yet, but don't worry, we'll get there. One of the additional spells we're going to grab at this level is Borrowed Knowledge. It's a 2nd level divination spell, and it allows you to draw knowledge from spirits of the past, just like you're talking to the pharaoh. Then the other spell we're going to grab is one more trap card, Mirror Image, allowing you to create some duplicates of yourself, so anytime damage is directed at you, you might be able to completely dodge it. Then you also get 2 spells from being a Celestial Warlock, which are Flaming Sphere and Lesser Restoration. And you may be noticing that even though some of the spells we're automatically given have this, most of the spells that we've actually chosen don't require very much rolling by either party, whether it's for a saving throw or your attack roll. And there's a reason for this. Your charisma is pretty damn low, and we don't want to rely on that too much later in the build. And that's because now, at level 4, we're jumping out of Warlock and into Wizard. There's some obvious downsides to this, because if you're starting a campaign at level 1, this is going to be really rough, so you might want to take some different cantrips early on and then swap them out later. But if you're starting a game at least at level 5 or above, which a lot of campaigns I know do start that way, this will be a bit more fun to play with. At level 1 of Wizard, you get some additional spell casting, and you get Arcane Recovery. Arcane Recovery allows you to regain some spell slots on a short rest, which is going to be super helpful because you already regained all of your Warlock spell slots on a short rest as well. You also get access to more cantrips and more spells to cast, but we're going to dive into that in the next level, because we want to make sure that we're focusing on conjuring creatures, casting any spells through them or directly through your cards. And it's a lot easier to do that at 2nd level of Wizard when we choose our Arcane Tradition. The Arcane Tradition we're going to choose is all about understanding the heart of the cards or understanding the written words on them. So we're going to choose the Wizard School Order of the Scribes. This allows you to have a wizardly quill, which makes it so you can copy spells into your spellbook much cheaper. And just think of this as having a discount because you're friends with the guy that owns the gaming shop. You also get an Awakened spellbook, and this is finally where things get a little better. Think of your spellbook as your deck of cards. You can use your spellbook as your spellcasting focus for your wizard spells. So now whenever you cast a spell, it's coming from the cards, not from you. This also gives you the ability to change the damage type coming from a spell into a different type of damage that you have in your deck of cards, and you can cast rituals a little faster. So now that we have a way to really have a deck of cards and cast spells through them, let's dive into some spells. Wizards get tons of spells and tons of cantrips, so I'm just going to focus focus on what spells work from each spell slot level that you have access to, and I'm not going to fill out the entire spell slot because wizards learn a ton of spells, so that would just take forever. Instead, we're just going to focus on whatever spells really matter from the spell slot that you have access to. We'll also run through the cantrips and which ones make the most sense. But let's dive into those spells first. As far as some first level spells, we need to grab Find Familiar. We have to be able to finally conjure some sort of creature, and this is the first creature we really have access to conjure. I know it doesn't have access to the same types of forms that you have access to by being a warlock and going back to the chain, but we'll still make do with what we have here. You can really only focus on different types of animals that are very small, but the best choice most of the time is an owl. Owls have a unique ability called Flyby, allowing them to not provoke an opportunity attack when they fly out of an enemy's range. So they can swoop down, do what they need to do, and swoop back out. Additionally, we're going to grab Shield, which you can think of as another trap card to block any damage coming directly at you, and we're going to take Magic Missile, because this is definitely something that either Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl would totally cast. Then just to round out some trap cards, I would grab Sleep, because early on in any D&D campaign, Sleep can really save an entire party. Then I would throw in some damaging spells with Chromatic Orb and Burning Hands, as they're both some decent damaging spells early on. Not to mention, Chromatic Orb has access to acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, and thunder damage for its types. And since you're in Order of the Scribe, you're able to swap out any damage of a first level spell for any of those other damage types. So now, since you're a master of the cards and you know what certain creatures would be weak against other types of damage, you can swap out your Burning Hands damage for anything that you see in your Chromatic Orb. Then, as far as your cantrips, you're just going to want to make sure you're pretty well rounded. You already have some decent assisting spells, so I would grab a variety of damaging spells and finish it up with Shocking Grasp. Shocking Grasp is a touch-based cantrip, deals lightning damage, it has advantage against any creature that's wearing metal armor, and because it's a touch-based cantrip, you can cast it through your familiar. Then at 3rd level of Wizard, don't forget this is 5th level overall, so all of your cantrips upgrade in damage. Then you also get access to 2nd level spells. Out of the 2nd level spells, there's definitely some points in the Yu-Gi-Oh show where you bust out some interesting combinations of cards. So if you activate a trap card for the spell Web, it will allow you to lock some creatures in place, and then you can follow it up with some fire-based spells, dealing some additional fire damage to any creature locked in that web. So it will deal whatever fire damage it originally did based off of whatever spell you're casting, and it can deal an additional 2d4 fire damage because it's trapped in the web that also caught on fire. So make sure to pick up a couple good fire spells here like Agonizer's Scorcher or Scorching Ray. Then we need to focus on the conjured creatures. There's not really a ton of conjured creatures at level 2 spell slot, but there is access to a spell called Dust Devil. This conjures a small dust devil in a 5-foot cube. It deals some bludgeoning damage and pushes creatures around, allowing you to control the battlefield a little bit better. Then we want to boost up our other conjured creature, our owl, a little bit more. And there's one great way to do this, with the spell Dragon's Breath. Dragon's Breath only uses a bonus action, and it's a touch spell, so you can cast it through your familiar. Have your familiar cast this as a bonus action, making its mouth magical. Then you get to choose either acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison damage, and until the spell ends, the creature can use an action to exhale the energy into a 15-foot cone, dealing 3d6 damage of that damage type, essentially turning your tiny little owl into a mini dragon. And that covers most of the solid 2nd level spells. So jumping into 4th level of Wizard, we get our first ability score improvement, and we're going to boost up our intelligence by 2 points, bringing it to 18. Also, this is 7th level of your build overall, so we're finally going to use that feat that you probably thought I forgot about. And we're going to grab the feat Eldritch Adept. This allows you to learn one Eldritch Invocation. We were waiting until now because there's a prerequisite for this Eldritch Invocation, requiring that we be 7th level. At 7th level, as long as we have the Pact of the Talisman, we can grab the Eldritch Invocation Protection of the Talisman, allowing whatever wearer of that talisman to add a d4 to any saving throw that they fail, potentially turning it into a success. They can do it a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and it recharges on a long rest. So this is a great way to help boost whoever is wearing your talisman, especially if it's a conjured creature, which I know we still don't have a lot of yet, but at 5th level of Wizard, we can finally do some more conjuring of creatures. So this is where we're really going to dive in full force. we're going to grab the spells Summon Undead, Summon Shadow Spawn, Summon Lesser Demon, Summon Fae, and all of these are great summoning spells to finally start bringing the battlefield to life with your cards. Summoning a Fae, Shadow Spawn, or Undead all allow you to choose the form that you think fits. So if you have a particular Yu-Gi-Oh card that might be something that could be Undead or Shadow Spawn or Fae, you can just use that as an example for what it could look like. The big difference between that and Summon Lesser Demons is that Summon Lesser Demons chooses very specific demons. You can either summon 2 demons of challenge rating 1 or lower, 4 demons of half or lower, or finally 8 demons of challenge rating 1/4 or lower, really allowing you to just swarm the battlefield with demons. This is like summoning a bunch of cards back to back. Just remember, even if you're the master of the cards, summoning lesser demons are hostile to everybody, including you. Then just make sure to throw in some trap cards like Hypnotic Pattern, allowing you to disable some of the cards that you're going up against. And you could throw in a few direct damage cards like Lightning Bolt or the infamous Fireball. Then at 6th level Wizard, you get a feature from your Order of the Scribes. You get Manifest Mind. This essentially makes your deck of cards come alive. You can also pretend that it's the talisman hanging around your neck, but it's just whatever flavor you want to go with. If you want to make it so this is the cards, it's essentially a little floating casting wizard helping you out. So you can really finally think of this as your Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl, because you can cast any of your spells directly through it and it can float up to 30 feet away from you. Then at 7th level of Wizard, you get access to a 4th level spell slot. So we're going to grab plenty of other conjuration and summoning spells. We're going to grab Conjure Minor Elementals. We're also going to grab the spell Summon Construct. I like this spell because just the idea that it's something that's constructed makes me feel like it's the creature Exodia. Since you have to summon multiple pieces of Exodia, the whole idea of it being a construct just makes more sense. But you can hold off on casting this until a higher level, because the higher level you cast this at, the stronger it's going to be. Every upgrade to the spell slot that you use to cast it increases its hit points and the amount of attacks it can actually use. But don't forget, you have a handful of other creatures you can summon, like Summon Aberration, Summon Elemental, and Summon Greater Demon. If you want to throw in 2 trap cards here, I would grab Confusion, because that's definitely a trap card if I've ever seen one, and Banishment, allowing you to banish a card from the battlefield and back to its owner's deck. Then at 8th level Wizard, you get another ability score improvement, so we're going to max out our intelligence, because that helps every aspect of being a wizard. Then at 9th level of Wizard, you get access to 5th level spell slots. There's 3 big spells you can grab from the 5th level spell slots. That's Animate Objects to create a ton of tiny little objects to flood the battlefield. Big B's Hand for one big ass conjuration to just smack the hell out of all of the cards on the battlefield. And then finally busting out some of the most iconic cards in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Summon Draconic Spirit. This comes from Fizban's Treasury of Dragons and allows you to summon a dragon to the battlefield. Whether you want to go Blue Eyes White Dragon, stealing it from Kaiba's deck, or the Red Eyes Black Dragon that Joey gifted you. Or if you want to rely on some help from the Pharaoh and rely on the Egyptian god card, Slipher the Sky Dragon. All of those are an option because you get to choose what this dragon looks like. You get to choose any of the damage types you could possibly think of, whether it's acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, force, necrotic, psychic, radiant, or even thunder. All of those are valid choices. And you're finally getting some of the most iconic cards in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Then at 10th level of Wizard, you get another feature from being an Order of the Scribes. You get Master Scrivener, essentially allowing you to make some spell scrolls. It can only be a spell of 1st or 2nd level and must have a casting time of 1 action, but because you're a master of the cards, it counts as 1 level higher than what it would normally be. Then at 11th level of Wizard, you get access to a 6th level spell slot. There are a few summoning spells, but first I want to jump into one spell that I absolutely love, but it is such a unique scenario that you can ever pull off making it work. It's the spell Magic Jar, and you can think of this as your Pot of Greed. It essentially allows you to trap a soul in a jar and then take over a different humanoid's body, possessing it, and you could do all sorts of crazy stuff with this. The only way I could possibly figure this working is if you try and possess a boss or something like that. That would be very difficult otherwise. Allow your party to damage the crap out of you and then return your soul back to where it was, and the creature is severely harmed and you just got to take one more shot against it. This spell doesn't require concentration, so if you have plenty of other creatures on the battlefield that you summoned from your deck. You can disable the other duelist that you're going up against and just let your creatures go to town. Then, just to make sure you cover all of your summoning bases, you can grab Create Undead and Summon Fiend. Then at 12th level of Wizard, you get another ability score improvement, and this is where you can get tricky if you have a super nice DM. See if they'll let you take Magic Initiate and not grab something from the usual spellcasting classes, but instead grab Compelled to Duel from Paladin. It's just for flavor of the character, and only if you have a really cool DM, but it would just allow you to cast the first level spell Compelled to Duel, just because that feels right for the character. If you don't have a super awesome DM that lets you do this, you can also just use the ability score improvement and boost up your Constitution by 2 points, improving your concentration and your health. Then at 13th level of Wizard, you get access to a 7th level spell slot. From the 7th level spells, we're going to grab Create Magen, which is from the book Icewind Dale Rime of the Frost Maiden. There's some reasonably powerful constructs, and this spell doesn't require concentration, so if you want to load up the battlefield, this is going to be super helpful to do that. Just be careful because the components for this spell are pretty damn expensive, and most of them are consumed. Then at 14th level of Wizard, the Order of the Scribes grants us One with the Word, giving you advantage on all Arcana checks, and helping you remember magical lore, which is going to be pretty helpful for remembering exactly what's in your deck, because that's a lot of cards. And it allows you to activate a few more card abilities, because as long as your cards are active, aka your spellbook's mind is manifested, you can sacrifice spells, aka other cards, to prevent damage that would be dealt directly to you. And this feels pretty accurate to how Yu-Gi-Oh is played, because there's plenty of times where you sacrifice cards to help defend yourself. Then at 15th level of Wizard, you get access to an 8th level spell slot. And there's 2 spells to really focus on here: Dominate Monster, so that way you can take control of your enemy's cards, and Illusory Dragon, because it's always great to have another dragon to play around with. Then at 16th level of Wizard, you get another ability score improvement, so we're going to boost up our Constitution one more time, which helps our health and our concentration. Then at 17th level, or 20th level overall, we get access to a 9th level spell slot, which is the highest spell slot you can get in Dungeons & Dragons. You can grab something like Shape Change at this level, allowing you to turn yourself into a new form, which would be any creature that has a challenge rating equal to your level or lower, but I think a much better choice is True Polymorph. This gives a very similar option where you can turn a creature into another creature, so if you only have the ability to summon a creature of a certain type, you can turn that creature into another type of creature with this spell. But I think what's even better about this spell is that you can turn a creature into an object, which can really save you, or you can turn an object into a creature. So if you have a card, you can turn it into a creature whose challenge rating is 9 or lower. The only issue is that you can't change the actual size of the creature. So if you have only the size of an actual playing card, that creature is going to be pretty darn tiny. So you're just going to have to play with a really massive deck of cards. That maxes out this build at level 20, and like I said earlier on, there are some better ways to optimize this depending on what level you're playing in your campaign. And if you didn't want to focus too hard on too many trap cards or protecting your creatures in various ways, you could wind up shying away from going Pact of the Talisman and go with Pact of the Chain. This would get you access to an imp or a pseudo dragon, and the pseudo dragon is just kind of a small dragon, so you can easily pull off making that into Blue Eyes Toon Dragon if you'd like. A lot of these pure caster builds tend to be a little more difficult and a little longer, so I hope you stuck around. And I still want to know if you can put in the comments down below what your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card is, or even what your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh character is. Personally, I like Kaiba, and I always love Blue Eyes White Dragon. If there's anything you do differently in this build, or any other builds you want in the future, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. And if you want access to the character sheets for this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below, where you have access to all of that, as well as my Discord and plenty of other perks. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, especially as an homage to the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh himself, Kazuki Takahashi. That's what this build was for, and if you made it all the way to the end here, I'm hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you have the heart of the cards and you're ready to